Are you locked in? Are you ready to go? It's 2026. Happy New Year. We have a ton of data to get into. We are this close for the signal to go long BTC.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
That close to flipping. We're almost there. There's a ton of data to go over. So let's just jump right into it because we have way too much to look at and not enough time. So we'll start off with the Bitcoin trend. First things first, this runs my Bitcoin portion of my portfolio. As you can see, the green bands up here, if you're new, when those are green, I'm long. When they're red, I'm sitting in cash. And you can see via the bottom portion of the indicator, we're very close to the gray line where this would actually signal long. So we'll see what happens over the weekend, but I have my dry powder ready in case this does signal. And if you want to know as soon as I get in, of course, this is not financial advice. Don't copy trade me, do your own research, all that stuff.
Are you stupid or something?
Follow me on X, subscribe to my Substack because those are the first sort of two places that I send the signals out. And I'm excited. It looks like 2026, I think, is going to be a pivotal year for Bitcoin. Maybe not so much for stocks. We'll see if I'm right or wrong on that. But regardless, still in cash, but very, very close to deploying that cash if this does trigger long, perhaps over the weekend. We will see, but I will be sending out all the updates for that. Global liquidity, the green line here, nothing really going, kind of just flat through the year end. There was a bunch of repo injections, so blah, 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 blah. If you're new here, the strategy results for this indicator that I use, these are it, just so you can see. I do these from different dates, but this is generally from 2018, so kind of the last two cycles. And you can see a profit factor of 4.5
Nice job, team.
with 63% profitable trades and an amazing P&L, pretty much 3x buy and hold, which is my goal, is just to be buy and hold and limit drawdowns, which this system has a 30% max drawdown. So if you're new here, that's kind of the back test for that. And we're done with the Bitcoin chart. So let's get into stocks really quick. And for the stock chart, this signal just updated yesterday and there was no change. So we are still in Goldilocks. We are still risk on for stocks. You can see kind of the score down here. We have 12 for Goldilocks, 13 for reflation, and then inflation and deflation have 10 max. And again, if you're new here, the results for this strategy for SPY are even better than for Bitcoin. You can see max drawdown 13%, profitable trade 75%, and a profit factor of an unheard of 17.095 for that. So cool. We got that out of the way. Again, this is my main risk on, risk off engine. This has 23 inputs, 24 inputs. All of them score up. Depending on the score, we know what regime we're in. And I'm actually, given that it's January, it's 2026. This year, I will be sharing my live portfolio so you can see what I'm actually doing, what positions I'm in.
No, God, please, no, no.
And we'll take a look at that in just a second. But before we do, let's go to gold really quickly. So gold, you can see by the background here, still risk on, still bullish in gold in terms of the trend. Again, these are trend following systems, except for the macro regime engine for S&P. So gold still bullish, which is good. Let's take a look at the stress dashboard really quick. And this is the one thing that I'm not happy or excited to see, which is the SOFR spread. You can see it's still blown out. It actually went higher than where we were at the end of December. So there's still stress, liquidity stress in the system. You can see VIX is up a little bit. The dollar has rebounded a little bit, and the MOVE index, which is bond volatility, has rebounded a little bit. So what you really want to see is this go downwards and not up or staying elevated above this danger zone. So we'll see what happens. If the Fed needs to inject more liquidity and more money, they will, if they can't get this fixed. I explained what this is a bunch of times, but basically it means that people are paying more money to borrow overnight cash with collateral versus the Fed funds rate overnight. Anyway, regardless, with that out of the way, let's take a look at my live portfolio and what the hell is going on and what am I doing. So if you've been with me from the beginning, you've seen a spreadsheet version of this. This is the live version. And the reason I'm sharing this is because A, keep myself accountable for following the systems, cold-blooded, just doing what the systems tell me, and that's it, no discretionary trades. And B, so you can see that I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You know, I've seen a lot of these Bitcoin and trading channels. You never see these guys' portfolio. They're giving you these signals. They're telling you all these things, giving price predictions. How do you actually know what they're trading? Maybe they're taking the other side of the trade. So anyway, this is just something to keep me accountable. You can see total net liquid is about 120,000. Cool. I have about 33,000 sitting in cash, and the rest of it is deployed to S&P and gold. Again, no Bitcoin until that signal goes green. And you can see my P&L open is not great, down about a 0.25%. mainly because of small caps. Just where I got in when the system told me to has been underperforming. If I was just sitting in SPY instead of small caps, this would be up, but it doesn't matter. That was a discretionary allocation adjustment that I did, and something that I'll be changing going forward. Once the Bitcoin signal does go bullish, I will be rotating all my small cap allocation into the Bitcoin bucket of the portfolio. So regardless, that's my portfolio. I put my money where my mouth is. Nice. And let's go. We're going to take a look at this week's breakdown in terms of the data. And lo and behold, there was really no data. This was the week of New Year's. So all we got was pending home sales and some unemployment claims. Unemployment claims came in under, which is bad in terms of the Fed adding liquidity. It just means to them that unemployment job market is still decent. And you can see that by the Fed funds rate odds for January, 15% that they're going to cut and an 85% chance that they're going to keep rates where they are. Again, Jay Powell has a couple of months left and then he's going to be replaced. So whatever he does here towards the end, I don't really think it matters, but this is what the market is pricing in currently, which is a 15% chance of a rate cut. There's a lot of data coming out this month and especially next week, which we're going to get the ISM manufacturing PMIs. So we'll kind of see where these are at. The forecast is slightly above where we're at now. And we'll go through the data next week when it does come in. So that's it for the odds. And now we're going to go into a new portion on this show, which is an indicator hunt, which we're going to look at strategies that other people are posting on TradingView and seeing, are these any good? Are they worth your time or not? And the two that we're going to look at today are this Supertrend EMA RSI Algo, which is low risk, high accuracy. We'll see about that. And then Tailwind BTC. And the reason I chose this was just because this is specifically apparently tuned for BTC. Although the description here makes me think this is going to perform horribly. It says, imagine the price of Bitcoin is like a person climbing a staircase to the steps, blah, blah, blah. Instead of watching every single price movement, the strategy divides the market into fixed steps.
Oh, hell no.
This is going to be terrible. So anyway, let's take a look at these two. We'll start with the Supertrend and let me pull it up here on the chart. And what I did was I want to backtest the same thing I'm doing for my own strategy, which is this trend following signal. So basically it's going to be the same date for whatever we're testing, and we'll see if it beats mine or even gets close. And if it does, it's something that we'll take a look at. So for the first one, Supertrend, I already have added it to the chart and I made sure the settings were correct before showing it to you. But you can see 3% P&L, max drawdown of 44%. Doesn't even come close to buy and hold, has a profit factor of 1. And if you sort of zoom in here, you can just see that it's too choppy, right? Like it exits you here in an uptrend, which is not good. This is not good. Again, it exits you here in an uptrend. It's just a very strange indicator. It doesn't make much sense to me. And clearly it does not perform well. So we can throw that one in the bin, Supertrend and EMA out. And we'll take a look at Tailwind, which was the staircase metaphor indicator, whatever. And I need to zoom in a little bit so you can actually see how many insane amounts of trades this does. But this actually doesn't perform that terribly, right? So since 2018, you have a 431% P&L, which is good. The max drawdown is really bad, 60%. I mean, that's terrible, at least for what I'm trying to do, at a profit factor of 1.3. So the blue line here is buy and hold, and you can see that this underperforms buy and hold by about 3x. Again, this is why I use my system. This is why I've spent a ton of time tuning it, back testing it independently, doing the results. Happy with this. Is it perfect? No. Am I going to continue to work on and optimize it? Yes, that is the goal. But regardless, those are the two for the indicator hunt. Tailwind beat the other one, but still not great in terms of the results. Again, this is with me using the default inputs. I did not tweak anything here. You could try this out, maybe tweak some stuff. Maybe it'll perform better, but just not really my style, not what I'm looking for, and definitely not the results that I would want to see in a strategy. So regardless, that's pretty much that for the indicator hunt of this video. And let's take a look at the institutional research and what that's saying. And, I thought a lot about this because now I have my macro regime engine, right, which is tuned for S&P and basically US assets. And that's my risk on, risk off. What you're looking at here is I pay for institutional research, macro research. This is what they are currently signaling. So they are risk on with a bearish Bitcoin trend. So no allocation to Bitcoin, and a bullish S&P trend. And what I was thinking of this past week was there will be times where my signals do not align with the institutional research that I pay for. So for example, maybe my macro regime engine here ends up going risk off, but the institutional research that I use is still risk on. What do I do then with my portfolio? And I think the easiest way to do this and the way to avoid the most drawdown and try and give the probabilities in my favor in order to increase my portfolio value is if both systems are risk on and one of them flips risk off, I cut whatever the allocation is I have for that asset. If it's a head fake and one of them goes back risk on and I lose 8% or 2 or whatever, I can live with that. I would rather get out early before a crash than get out late. And I'd also rather get out early before a crash than get in faster. I'll give up a couple of percentage points in order to lower my drawdown and make my profit factor higher in terms of how I'm using my capital, the return on my capital, all that stuff. So
me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
That's how I'm going to approach it. We'll see. Maybe I'll change that. Nothing stays static here. We learn, we adapt, or we die. And that's basically it. So that's it for the institutional research, risk on, Bitcoin bearish, S&P bullish. And we can take a look really quickly at the liquidations. So we'll just give this a quick refresh. And I think for the 3 month, this is the 24 hours. So you can see we have some longs building up on the downside. But if we take a look at the 2 week, again, some hot spots at about 86K. And then if we zoom out to the 3 month, we do have a decent spot of leverage below current price, but that's kind of obvious. People are trying to get the bottom as soon as they can. Most of this is stacked to the upside. So that hasn't changed since the last time we looked at it. And that's pretty much it for the liquidations. In terms of some of the on-chain stuff, all of the momentum trends are still bearish. I just updated these before I started the video. You can see these are all still red. So that kind of just confirms my bias that yes, we're getting close to potentially going risk on in terms of Bitcoin specifically, but all the on-chain, all the momentum stuff still technically bearish. And for that reason, I feel good continuing to sit in cash until my system actually signals to go long. So that's it for that. I do have a couple of tweets I wanted to take a look at. So we'll start it up with Tony Severino here talking about the ISM and the business cycle. This was a huge narrative last year. I think it's going to be an even bigger narrative this year, given how the ISM has performed last year. But let me read this out really quick and then we'll dive into it. The business cycle narrative in Bitcoin/crypto is the new M2 chart. The first 6 months of last year, everyone was obsessed with global liquidity and the M2 chart. That ended up breaking and diverging, and no one posted it anymore. I mean, some people still post it thinking that the jaws are going to snap back, but whatever. Over a year ago, I cautioned against the clear cherry pick of a visual correlation that ignored reality and confirmed biases. Try and recall which accounts already live and die by this meaningless temporarily correlation to M2 and realize that the same one's clinging onto the business cycle turning up from here. ISM/PMI is due for a cyclical trough. Next, now that it's past peak cycle amplitude, you can't just point to it rising because your portfolio and your bullish reputation rides on it. A cyclical lower is very possible, even probable, like we saw in the 2000s. But since that's before Bitcoin, most analysts ignore all previous history. And so, so he's giving an actually a bullish view on the ISM in terms of, I'll preface it with this. This has been the longest the ISM has spent under 50 since they started recording the ISM. So keep that in mind also. And these kind of analysis, just time-based, are okay, but I wouldn't ride my whole portfolio based on them. Regardless, if this does go lower or does not break out this year in terms of the ISM, if we don't get above 50, to me, I don't really care. It's a nice fundamental piece of research and analysis and something to think about, but that is why I have my systems. I do not have to think. This macro regime engine has 23 different assets, all individually tuned depending on their momentum and trend currently. If they are bullish, they get certain votes. If they are bearish, they get different votes. All those votes get added, and that is what signals the system to be risk on or risk off, obviously with an amazing backtest. So I don't have to worry about the ISM or any of that other stuff. If this goes risk off, I'm out. I'm sitting in cash or some kind of bond heavy portfolio. And same thing for Bitcoin. If this just doesn't go green and we continue sliding further, I just continue to sit in cash and avoid the drawdown. Very easy for me. I can sleep at night. But anyway, really interesting. And I am interested to see what happens with the ISM this year, because I think if plumbing stress and liquidity stress in terms of things like the SOFR Fed fund spread and other things like the TGA, we can actually really quickly look at the TGA to see if they've dropped it any. I don't think they have. No, they haven't. It stayed pretty much the same for December, besides that first drop off of about 75 billion. So it doesn't matter to me. You know, if the Fed does do a liquidity bazooka because their 50 billion or 75 billion or 40 billion, whatever it is a month that they're buying assets with isn't enough, my system will be long. I don't have to worry about how much they're injecting. Is it enough? Is it not enough? Etc. So anyway, cool tweet though. Nice analysis here by Tony. And yeah, the global liquidity, again, this was the most popular thing ever last year. And you can just see that correlations only work for so long. You need to have a system. And so we'll go over one of mine, actually just pinning one of mine. This is one of the reasons. Here's a counter argument to Tony's. This is S&P 500 forward earnings percent change versus the PMI. And you can see they are generally correlated, at least since 1985, which is what this chart goes back to. So you can kind of see it here. I'll move my camera a little bit. But anyway, this would tell you that PMIs should be going higher and there's currently like an air gap here that you would think would close like it has closed before. Now, it could just do what it did in 2018 where the forward earnings collapses back down and meets the blue line, right? So it can go both ways. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is you can do fundamental research until your eyeballs dry out and you have no cup of noodles left and no energy drinks. And you sat there for 24 hours straight. You've done all this fundamental analysis and it's still not going to matter if you don't have a system. I mean, it matters, but I'm not going to run my whole portfolio based on I think something is going to happen. I want to see what is happening now and what is the market pricing in now. So anyway, I don't want to get into a whole sermon rant over on that, but again, Julio Moreno, this has been coming up a lot on my feed in terms of whales buying a ton of Bitcoin. And he just kind of debunks this and says that it's not true. In terms of most Bitcoin whale data out there has been affected by exchange consolidating a lot of their holdings into fewer addresses with larger balances. This is why the accumulation looks like it's happening, but it's not actually happening. You don't know what's happening, okay? In terms of what exchanges are doing behind the scenes. They could just be consolidating, moving numbers around to a different wallet, whatever. That's the sort of downside of a lot of this on-chain data is you don't know the reasoning behind it a lot of the times. Is there alpha to glean from on-chain data? Of course, but you have to be very careful and analytical in terms of what am I looking at and why does it matter? And honestly, I think that's it for this week. I think we're done. The first official macro war room has come to an end. I'm now putting the intro as the outro. The year already has started out kind of weird, but I'm excited. I am locked in. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to work my tail off to ensure my systems are performing as optimally as they possibly can. So if you want to take this journey with me this year, you know what to do in terms of all the buttons down there and all that other jargon. I'm not even going to ask you for it. If you did enjoy the video, click it, I guess. Just click it, man. Or woman. I'm sure there's like a 0.005% of females watching this, but in case you're out there, you know what to do. So I appreciate you. That's the first video of the year in the books, and it's going to be a great 2026. So I hope to see you back next week. We'll go through all the data, all the charts, anything that needs to be talked about. It'll be here. As always, I appreciate you and have a great first weekend of 2026. Cheers.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Macro War Room, where we jack into the market mainframe and derug the narrative. Plug into the pipes, M2, DXY, inflation, momentum, fresh prints, CPI, ISM, payrolls, rates, truth by facts, not vibes. Tweets and news rundown, meme to policy, curated, timestamped, tradable.
Welcome, you've got mail.
Copium not included. Roll the tape, let's invest like it's 1999 but with better charts.